India is the second most populous country, the seventh largest country by area, and the most populous democracy in the world. Despite Muslims being a minority in India with a population percentage of 14.2, the sectarian forces have kept on politicizing their population growth, not based on the demographic correlates, but based on pernicious propaganda, stereotyping popular common sense perceptions. The question is never raised about the 80% population of the majority community in terms of their contribution to the population growth, while there is a constant attack on the minority Muslim population to be responsible for the population growth of the country. In a research paper, it has been rightly noted that one of the crucial aspects of the debate about Muslims in India is the inverse relationship between the intensity of the discussion and the shortage of empirical facts. Amartya Sen, a Nobel laureate in economics, in his 2000 book Identity and Violence writes, "In India, the seemingly common strategy is to use religious identity as a singular marker for constructing an us versus them debate. The propaganda against Muslims being the prime contributors to the population growth is not new. It has its roots before the independence of the nation, as is evident in a 1909 book, Hindus, A Dying Race, written by U.N. Mukherjee. The narrative is almost always that the Muslims are a threat to Hindus, a population bomb continuously exploding in the country. The propaganda continues to impact political decisions and imagination in the country against Muslims. There are several myths whose combination gives rise to a conspiracy theory of Muslims consciously trying to outnumber the Hindus to establish Islamic rule within the nation. They are: Muslims have a grand plan to render Hindus a minority in their own country by reproducing at a rate much faster than the Hindus. To achieve this, Muslims have more than one wife. They practice polygamy. They do not use family planning methods so that their growth does not slow down. Although the Muslim population has indeed grown at a faster rate than its Hindu counterpart, the trend has greatly changed in the past decades. Since independence, population growth in India has declined from 21.54% in the decade 1991 to 2001 to 17.64% in the decade 2001 to 2011, a decrease of 3.9 percentage points. All the major religious groups in India have experienced a decline in their population growth rate. For Muslims, however, there is a sharp decline in decadal population growth from 29.5% in 2001 to 24.6% in 2011. This is a decline of 4.9%, which is higher than the corresponding decline of 3.1% in the Hindu community. This means that the population growth is falling at a faster rate in Muslims as compared to the Hindu population. The propaganda of Muslim conspiracy of overtaking the country is fanned by the false claims that Muslims indulge in polygamous relationships at a large scale. For all Muslims to marry 4 women, the male to female ratio within the community will have to be 1:4, or for every 1,000 Muslim men, there will have to be 4,000 Muslim women. The sex ratio of Muslims as per the census is 951 Muslim women per 1,000 Muslim men, slightly better than that of the Hindus, which is that for every 1,000 Hindu men, there are 939 Hindu women. Therefore, in these conditions, for Muslims to marry more than one wife at a large scale, women from other communities will have to be married. With the already low sex ratios in the country, this is impossible to achieve. The fact is that the proportion of Muslim men with more than one wife is small and about the same as or less than among Hindus. During the Babri Masjid campaign of 1986 to 1992, Sadhvi Saraswati claimed that the polygamy turns Muslim women into sexual objects and breeders, that for every 5 Hindu children born, Muslims have 50, and that Hindus would become a minority in India within 25 years. It has been more than 25 years since then, and Muslims remain to be a minority. Ironically, the 1971 census data and its monograph titled Polygynous Marriages in India, a survey, provides the evidence that the incidence of polygyny, 2 or more wives, is highest among Adivasis, 15.25%, followed by Buddhists, 7.9%, Jains, 6.72%, Hindus, 5.8%, and is lowest among Muslims, 5.70%. Contrary to these facts, a VHP pamphlet published in 1990 contained the repost, while Hindus supposedly obey the government slogan, Muslims men allegedly have 4 wives and say, "Hum panch, hamare 25." It is these false comments and lies about a community to gain political advantages which make social communication between communities toxic. The popular claim that Muslims give birth to more children is also factually incorrect. As per the National Family and Health Survey (NFHS) data, in comparison to Hindus, the fertility rate among Muslims is declining fast. In NFHS 4 data for the year 2015 to 2016, the total fertility rate was 2.62 for Muslims compared to 2.13 for Hindus. Muslim fertility is indeed higher than Hindu fertility, but the difference is not as massive as it is portrayed in popular consciousness, and the gap has been narrowing rapidly. Just 10 years earlier, NFHS 3, the TFR for Muslims was 3.40 and for Hindus it was 2.59, a difference of 0.81 births that has now become a difference of 0.49 births per woman. In India, states like Kerala, which have witnessed credible all-round development, the fertility rate among the Muslims is lower than overall national level fertility rate. As per NFHS 4 2015-16, total fertility rate of Muslims in Kerala is 1.8, much less than of Hindus in UP, which is 2.6. Similar trends are noticeable in the neighboring state of Tamil Nadu, where it is 1.7. This shows that with growth and development, couples are better equipped to make decisions in favor of smaller families. There are many factors which affect the demographic characteristics of a population. They are determined by socioeconomic factors including the type of residence, education, economic status, as well as by culture, religion, sense of security among others, and not by religion alone. Demographers systematically disaggregate the categories Hindu and Muslim along these lines rather than positing essential differences based on religion per se. Thus, they tend to undermine the very notion of Muslim fertility. Let us check the data to find out the truth. Total fertility rate in rural India, which has lower access to education, income, and other resources in comparison with urban India, is 2.41. This is only 1.75 in urban India. Among women aged 15 to 49 years with no schooling, total fertility rate is 3.06, while among those with 12 or more years of schooling, total fertility rate is 1.71, a difference of 1.35 births. Among those in the lowest wealth index, the total fertility rate is 3.17, while among the highest wealth index, it is 1.54. Further, total fertility rate declined by 40.8% among Muslims and 35.5% among Hindus between NFHS 1, that is 1992-93, to NFHS 4, which is 2015-16. The national average decline in this period was 35.7%. Total fertility rate is bound to decline further as the socioeconomic characteristics and the sense of security in Muslims improve. All these statistics help in confirming the hypothesis that more than religion, the socioeconomic conditions of the people are responsible for family choices. References to the population explosion and the need for population control or stabilization completely ignore the emerging evidence that total fertility rate in the country is already down to 2.2 as of 2015-16, marginally above the 2.1 replacement rate in almost 24 states. According to NFHS 4, the desired fertility rate is 1.8. Further, the 2011 census data also showed that the decadal growth rate had reduced to 17.7% from 21.5% over 2001. Despite these shifts, the population is expected to grow for some time due to the phenomenon of population momentum, as a higher number of couples now have fewer children compared to the earlier situation of fewer couples having more children. One can easily guess which communities will have higher couples in existing population distribution and end up contributing to the population growth in absolute terms. Also, the rapid decline in birth rates witnessed for several decades in predominantly Muslim countries like Iran, Indonesia, and Bangladesh illustrate the fact that there is nothing inherently Islamic about high fertility. It is not only fertility rates which are responsible for population growth among Muslims in India. The higher child and adult survival rates also contribute to the same. In the NFHS survey of 2005-06, it was found that there was a difference of 4 years between life expectancy at birth of poor Muslims, which is 65.5 years, and life expectancy at birth of Hindus of 61.5 years. This has often been observed as a paradox within the literature, as despite the poor condition of income and health infrastructure, Muslims somehow do better than other communities in these areas. It is well accepted among experts that poverty, illiteracy, insecurity, and inaccessibility to birth control programs are the root causes for the population growth in the downtrodden sections of the community, irrespective of caste and religion. Unfortunately, we tend to gloss over this fact and pin the blame on Muslim clergy for the swelling demography in the areas populated by such Muslims. We tend to ignore that among the Muslims at the bottom end of the social pyramid, illiteracy, underage marriage, poverty, and population outburst are not only pervasive but are also interrelated, which only compounds the problem of burgeoning birth rates. Despite their low socioeconomic status, the growing use of family planning methods and decrease of fertility rate deserve attention. The graph shows that in comparison to Hindus, the use of family planning methods is increasing more rapidly among the Muslims. This rejects the claim of right-wing sectarian forces that Islam prevents Muslims to use family planning. The previous graph shows that religion alone does not impact the use of family planning methods, but other socioeconomic factors including education, rural-urban division, wealth index among others also impacts its use. Demographers systematically disaggregate the categories Hindu and Muslim along socioeconomic lines: religion, place of residence, urban or rural, occupation, education, especially of the mother, class, rather than positing essential differences based on religion per se. Thus, they tend to undermine the very notion of Muslim fertility. Now, what does this have to do with the population bill? Isn't the bill meant to have a positive impact on the lives of all the citizens of the country? On July 12, 2019, Member of Parliament Rakesh Sinha tabled the Population Regulation Bill in the Rajya Sabha. The bill stipulates several incentives for families that have no more than 2 children. These include income tax rebates and free healthcare for parents, subsidies and loans for plots and houses. The bill identifies penalties for contravening the norm, including reduced access to the public distribution system (PDS), higher interest rates on loans, lower interest on savings, and disqualification from being an elected representative. It is clear from the above analysis that there is a direct relationship between inequality and the impact of population bill. As the bill suggests penalties on families which have more than 2 children, it is evident which communities and income groups are going to be impacted the most. Communities with high fertility, which unequivocally are those with lowest incomes, education, health, and infrastructure, are going to be disproportionately affected by such a law. Communities which already struggle to make ends meet will be deprived of the developmental goals and growth of the nation. Scheduled tribes, scheduled castes, Muslims among other minorities would be hit hardest. Even with these minorities, Muslims, which do not have equal minority reservations in the nation as compared to other deprived minorities, would take the brunt from the imposition of such a law. Muslims lie at the intersection of economic deprivation, social exclusion, lack of political participation, and low reservation benefits. It seems that, like Citizen Amendment Bill, the Population Bill is designed carefully by radical right to deprive Muslims and other oppressed communities more than they have already been deprived. A population policy that mandates a 2-child family is therefore bound to target the weakest sections of our society. They're the poor, the rural, the less educated, and the Muslims, of course. It is worth noting that China has changed its decades-old one-child policy to meet the demands of the rising labor force. Its population, due to the policy, ages to the level of developed nations while it lacks the resources and income levels to maintain this population. Muslim population growth has slowed down as fertility has declined substantially, clearly showing that Muslims are well into demographic transition. In the future, growth is bound to be slower and eventually the population is bound to reach replacement levels. Therefore, before introducing a bill which is going to deprive certain communities of their equal status in the constitution, the real issues of economic disparity, wealth inequality, deprivation and political participation needs to be addressed first so that the existing schism in the received benefits from growth and development of the nation does not continue.